Hey guys, welcome to JReviews DLC, a new show I'll be doing on this channel which focuses both on DLC and expansions for games that I have covered on JReviews in earlier episodes. I'm Iceman, and the content covered today is Phoenix Point, which I covered back in episode 5, with discussion of where the game is at in 2022, with what changes have come to the game since I last covered it, and going through the first two DLCs of the game. The first being the Living Weapons DLC, then followed by Blood and Titanium. So starting out, we'll be covering the state of the game as it is today, with the changes that have occurred from 2020 to now. Prior to my recent playthrough of the game, I had not played the game since 2020. Here is the changes I noticed along the way since that point in my recent playthrough. So the first of the big changes noticeable from the offset was the new tutorial section of 3 separate levels which take you through the basics of the game. The first takes you through movement and shooting, with the overall task being to take out several Pandoran enemies. The second level takes you through the more advanced movement stages, use of action points, as well as explaining how special abilities work. Your main task in that level is to rescue a captured operative, whilst being up against human bandit opponents, and later has you in control of a vehicle. The third and final tutorial level tasks you with reclaiming a Phoenix base, as well as 2 operatives there. Opponents there are Pandoran. Compared to the short original tutorial, this is a big improvement with many aspects far better explained into, which is good as some of the concepts of this game may be a little confusing to newcomers. The second change to the game is the switch from the Pandoran occupation percentage over to a worldwide population survival percentage. This is a big change, as whilst you can certainly slow down the rate of its decline by protecting havens, it does instill a manner of urgency, as ultimately you need to move as fast as you can in finding a way to defeat the Pandoran threat once and for all. For me, this change certainly added some extra anxiety into the mix, as it kept me fearing for an ultimate defeat later on down the line, if I was not able to make it to the final stage or not. Thankfully though, if you keep exploring the world and defending havens, then you should be fine. When war breaks out between the factions though, expect to see that percentage drop very quickly. The third change to the game is that you can now see soldiers' base stats in their soldier management screen. This is most definitely a positive improvement, as it allows you at a glance to see the immediate effects of gear and of the acquiring of new abilities in how they affect the soldier's base stats, from like accuracy, damage, etc. The fourth change is a massive one. That change is that you now cannot build food production facilities at all until you unlock the fungal food production technology from the Disciples of Anu, either via getting it from having good relations with them, or by stealing it from one of their havens. Either of those 2 options involves waiting until Anu have researched it themselves. What this means is that food for a good chunk of the early to mid game is very hard to come by, and when it does, you'll need to carefully consider of whether to use it for trade purposes or hoard it to ensure that your soldiers have enough food to survive. In my recent playthrough, this definitely was another anxiety adding effect to the game overall. And even after gaining the technology, they don't give as big of a food production bonus anymore, which means that it will take you a considerable amount more of the facilities to be built before you're at a comfortable level to really take advantage of it. My advice is to build at least 15 to 20 of those facilities once you have the technology unlocked. It will take a very long time to get that done, but in the end it will make a huge difference in being able to trade for the other essential resources that you will need, and to get your troops well equipped and to have enough ships to fly them around. Game change number 5 is the huge increase in the amount of Phoenix bases. Originally the game had somewhere between 7 and 9 Phoenix bases placed completely randomly around the world. For some players this led to unwinnable situations where barely any, if any at all, Phoenix bases were within reach of their starting position, which made progress extremely difficult. Fast forward to 2022, however, and now there is a large amount of Phoenix bases spread all over the world, generally within a short distance from each other. This greatly assists in helping players slowly spread out and to increase their available satellite coverage. In addition, many of the bases once activated will need to be cleaned out of Pandoran forces in order to recapture them. Speaking of satellite coverage, change number 6 is the complete removal of the spending of resources to scan an area with probes, and instead new sites are found either via satellite scans or from having a ship nearby. This combined with the increase in bases helps to push the player into slowly spreading outward. Game change number 7 is that now the player will receive intelligence updates when the Pandorans evolve, research new technologies, and unlock new classes. Whilst this does not affect gameplay in any major way, this is good as it helps the player to better plan for later missions and to know what to expect. A positive change overall. The final change to the game is that now in beating it, you get to see your endgame stats. You'll get to see how many havens survived versus destroyed, the surviving worldwide population, how many bases you activated, how many sites you explored, what and how many of each enemy or faction you've killed, how many missions you've taken on, and general research stats. It's another change that does not affect gameplay in any way, but it is a welcome one, and it gives the game some further polish. And that's the main changes that have been made to the game since 2020, and on to talking about the DLC side of things. Alright, so onto the DLC. So let's bring up the stats for those two. Alright, so we have the Living Weapons DLC. So the additions with that one is new gear and missions and nothing else. As you see, there's no new buildings, no new factions, no music, research, etc. Blood and Titanium, however, as you see with all the stats there, this adds quite a bit. So you get new buildings, factions, gear, missions, and research, as well as cutscenes and story additions. Alright, so to go into more detail, I'll jump over to talking about Living Weapons DLC. So right off the bat, the Living Weapons DLC does not add a whole heap of new stuff to the game, more just small additions here and there. First off is the inclusion of a series of 3 extra missions, which unlock once the first Pandoran is researched. All of these involve taking on Pandoran forces, and each rewards a single living weapon or armor. Armor is the first bit of gear gained from the missions, and has some great stats on it. The weapons, on the other hand, are a bit of a mixed bag. The first weapon gained, called the Danchev Assault Rifle, is fantastic, as it causes acid damage with each shot, and it has infinite ammo. The second and final weapon, named the Danchev Machine Gun, causes poison damage with each shot, and also has infinite ammo, but lacks the armor shredding capabilities of the Assault Rifle. Unfortunately, no new research is unlocked through doing any of the missions, and so the armor and weapons that you gain are the only instances of that gear that is present in the game, full stop. And so making sure that you don't have them destroyed in battle is very important. The Assault Rifle for me was the best of the bunch, and one to swap over to your squads for each mission. Very, very, very good weapon. And that's it for the Living Weapons DLC. Not a whole heap added with it, but what has been added is most welcome. And so now, onto the Blood and Titanium DLC. Blood and Titanium is a far larger piece of DLC. It features a new faction called the Pure, story bits with videos and cutscenes and conversations with the Pure, attacks by the Pure on havens, additional research, one new building, new mechanical augmentations, as well as a repair item to go alongside those to repair them, and the inclusion of additional missions. So straight off the bat, you have the new faction of the Pure, who are an offshoot of New Jericho, who believe in survival via the complete removal of all flesh and replacing it with mechanical augmentations. They have declared war on all who think differently, and believe themselves to be the only ones capable of surviving and defeating the Pandoran threat. Very early on, you are treated to a video introduction to this new faction, and receive several further broadcasts from them as the game progresses, sometimes with new missions and other times with new research. The Pure, once introduced, will start attacking havens randomly, and it'll be up to the player on whether they want to stop them or not. The Pure make for an interesting new force to take on, due to their heavy amount of augmentations and high level of equipment, which can make them quite difficult to take on, especially in the later missions. Included with this DLC is several new mechanical augmentations that can be researched, and with a new repair item to go with them, as that is the only way to repair them in battle. Outside of battle, however, they require large resource investments to repair, which is a major negative about them. If they repaired naturally whilst at a Phoenix base, then that would have been far better. One new building is added to the game in the form of the Cybernetics Lab. Much like the Mutations facility, this allows the switching out of organic body parts for cybernetic augmentations. The final addition with the DLC is 4 new missions. Most of them are optional and are a mixture of missions against the standard factions, with the goal being to steal research, and others involve taking on the Pure directly. The final mission in particular is very difficult and will require you to send in your best troops if you want any hope in hell of getting through it. If you're able to get through it though, that will see the Pure removed from the game and you will not see them again. So, with all that factored in, Blood and Titanium is quite a lot more in the way of content and additions to the base game, and it also adds to the game in a positive way. On the subject of bugs, the game is in an improved state than it was several years ago. It is now far more stable, with far less crashes, which makes for a much better experience overall. So overall, both the Living Weapons as well as the Blood and Titanium DLCs are a worthy addition to the game. Neither affects the game in any negative way, and both add more content into it. I'd recommend playing with both enabled to add a bit more spice into the game. And that concludes my review of the Living Weapons and Blood and Titanium DLCs for Phoenix Point. If you've enjoyed watching this video and would like to see more videos in this series, be sure to hit the subscribe button and to check out my channel for further videos, and you'll find out what else is available. And with that guys, have a good one.